Hi, my name is Heather. I'm the creative artist in business, and in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you some techniques that go alongside specifically with my pattern for my mini jumper bunting. But there are also skills that you can use for simple garment making. So the mini jumper is literally what you see in front of you. It is a mini jumper and it's made out of a front, a back, which are the exact same making, and then two sleeves, which are the exact same instructions. And then it's got neckline, a neckline, sorry, but it's all incorporated into the front and back. So it's made out of four rather, I say simple pieces, but I would say that because I've been doing this for quite a while. But if you're new to knitting, you might find this as a nice challenge. And I say nice challenge because once you've made it, it is just so hard not to go, oh, every time you look at it, because they're just so incredibly cute and they make the perfect little gifts, and I cannot wait to have them hanging on my Christmas tree. But anyway, so the skills that I'm going to be showing you in this video are how to decrease your stitches. So we create this kind of like funnel shape so that we can better attach our arms. I'm also going to show you how to sew your pieces together, so your side seams together, which will make life a lot easier. And then I'm also going to show you how to construct your pieces. So I'm going to show you how to attach the arms to the body. So it's quite a long one, so hopefully you've got a cup of tea, pause wherever you need to, replay wherever you need to, etc. So I'm going to move everything out the way other than my knitting so that my camera stays focused on what I want it to stay focused on. So like I said, I'm working from my own knitting pattern for mini bunting, and the point I've got up to is I've knit up to the point where I've started to do my decreases. So I've got my decreases. They'll become more dominant as you progress. So they're not as obvious at the moment, but I've got my left leaning decrease, which if I just point out with my knitting needle, which is here. So they look like ordinary stitches, but they're a little bit bigger, they're a bit raised, and they are leaning in one direction. So this one's leaning to the left, and on this side I've got my right leaning decreases. So they're slightly leaning to the right. So a decrease, a stitch decrease, in case you're not entirely sure, a stitch decrease is where you deliberately lose a stitch. And we're going to rewind. We are deliberately going to lose a stitch at either end of the row. And we're going to do this using two different techniques. We're going to, on the first couple stitches, we're going to do a slip, slip, knit. And on the last two, we're going to do a knit two together. So both are stitch decreases, but the slip, slip, knit will create a decrease where it leans to the left, and the knit two together, which will create a stitch decrease that will lean to the right. So let's get started. My pattern is asking that I knit the first stitch, so I'm going to do that first of all. Knit the first stitch. Right. Now, in order to get these stitches to lean in a specific direction, we need to change the direction of where the stitches are currently facing. So they're currently facing downwards, and I know they're facing downwards because the front bar of the stitch is higher than the back bar. That means they are facing downwards. That's a good thing. We want that when we're knitting. We want them to face upwards. So what we're going to do, my yarn is at the back. I'm not going to be using it. It's just going to sit there for a minute. I'm going to use my right needle to slip the next two stitches off of my left needle. And as if I'm literally going in as if I'm about to knit them, but instead of wrapping the yarn around, I'm literally just kicking them off. So I've slipped them. I've not knit them. My yarn is still here, look. I'm now going to slip them back on to the left needle. And this can be a little bit tricky. So I'm going to try and do it together. So I'm going to try and slip them together, and I'm going to slip them so they're literally going up and over, and my right needle is at the back. So I'll show you that once more because it is really, really fiddly. So if you know, give it a couple goes. If you get it wrong, you get it wrong. It's not the end of the world. It's all about tolerance with knitting. We're going to go up and over that left needle, up and over. So now my right needle is at the back, and I'm going to knit those two stitches together, and there we have it. That will create a stitch decrease that leans to the left. Brilliant. I'm now going to knit my row as my pattern asked me to, up until 3 stitches, and I'm going to do that in 3, 2 and 1, Excellent. Now this one is a little bit easier compared to slip slip knit, because what you're literally going to do is you're going to take your right needle and you're going to knit 2 of these stitches together. So as you would with an ordinary knit stitch, but we're going to be going under the second stitch. We're going to be going through to the top stitch. So we're literally knitting those 2 stitches together like so. And that creates my right leaning decrease. And there we go. So those are the 2 techniques that we use for decreasing, especially on where a sleeve is going to attach, because these V's, or these raised stitches that we've now created, when it comes to sewing those garment pieces, these are going to be an absolute lifesaver, because we're going to put our tapestry needle underneath that entire stitch, and it's going to create a beautiful seam that no one will see. But I'm jumping the gun. I'm going ahead. I'm just going to show you that once more. So I'm going to pull the wrong side row again, as my pattern dictates me to. I'll show you that once more. I'm not going to give you instructions. I'm just going to complete the task nice and slowly. So if you need any of the instructions, please do feel free to rewind and go back to the beginning. So I'm gonna start talking. My needle slipped out. Boo-hoo. That's how tricky this can be. So even for someone like me who's been knitting for literally decades of my life, the needle can still slip out. So this is where tolerance comes in, because you have to be tolerant when it comes to knitting, and resilient. You've got to be patient with it. It's not going to happen overnight. So I'm going to give it another go. Done. Okay. This is going to be my knit 2 together. And there we go, my 2 decreases. Brilliant. The next part of this video is going to show you how to sew your front and back seams together, and then it's going to show you how to add the sleeves. There you go. I hope you found that really, really useful, and I'll see you in a minute. Hi, and welcome back to the knitting tutorials for the Mini Jumpers knitting kit, or the pattern if you've just purchased the pattern itself. So far we have knit the 2 sleeves, and I've actually sewn the sleeves together. And now I am going to show you how to sew a seam, or how to sew 2 edges or 2 pieces together using the front and back. I wanted to show you specifically on the front and the back because it's less fiddly, and I think you'll get a better view as to what I'm actually doing. So I'm going to show you how to sew those 2 pieces together first, and then I'll show you how to attach the arms. So I'm going to put the arms to one side for now, and let's focus on these bad boys. So there are instructions within the booklet which shows you the construction techniques that's used for the seam. So for this image here specifically, this is an arm. So it's showing you how the needle goes in and out, in and out. And as you can see from the image, now I will be doing this, so don't panic, but you can see from the image how this tapestry needle is going underneath the entire stitch. So we know it's the entire stitch because you can see 2 legs of the stitch, or 2 bars of the stitch. And this technique is called a mattress stitch, and it's literally where you go from one side to the other and back again, over and over again. And then when you pull that yarn, it will create an invisible seam. It's a fantastic technique. So this is what I'm going to be showing you here now, and then I'll show you how to do the sleeves. So I'm going to pop the pattern booklet to one side because I don't need that right now, and I'm going to focus on the front and back. So what you would do, and I believe it does specify in the pattern, it says to use the tail of your your jumper pieces. I have woven my tails in because I'm going to be using a different contrast color yarn, so you can see exactly what I'm up to. And I've just noticed I've got a bit of a theme going on here with the purple, so I'm debating whether to go for a different color, maybe. Ooh, yeah, I'm going to go for orange. That's way nicer. Sorry, because I've already got purple on my nails. So I'm just going to cut myself a little piece of bright neon orange so we can definitely see what I'm up to. And the first thing I'm going to be doing, now you won't need to do this step because you should have your tail of your yarn to do the sewing. However, maybe your tail was too short, maybe you ran out, blah, blah, blah. These things happen. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the corner of one of the jumpers. It does not matter which one. I've got the wrong side facing me, so the purl side facing me. And I'm going to anchor my yarn in position by stitching on the same spot 2 or 3 times. So I've brought the yarn through just a stitch in the corner, and I've left myself a tiny little tail, about 1/2 inch. And now I'm just going to do the exact same thing 2 or 3 times. So I've done that 1, and then I'm going to do 2. But on the final time, what you want to do is you want the needle to go through the loop of yarn. If I just pull that in. There you go, like so. Because that will just help to knot. Oh no! That will just help to knot your yarn in place, and just means it's really well anchored so it's not going anywhere. Fantastic. So because we are going to be joining the front and back pieces together, I'm going to line up the front and back pieces so they're end to end. Now they are the exact same sizes, the exact same amount of stitches, so you don't need to worry about, well, which is the front and which is the back. They are identical. And all I'm going to do, I say all I'm going to do, it's not all I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and line up the edges of my stitches. So you can see there is there's some similarity. So for example, I've got a bubble, bubble, line, line, bubble, bubble, line, line. And then my lines or my bubbles will slowly disappear, and I'll either get a straight line or a more diagonal line. Using these little indicators are going to help us to keep our seams together, nice and tight, nice and beautiful, and also nice and even. So my yarn is already on the left side, so I'm going to keep it on the left side, and I'm going to bring my tapestry needle under one stitch. It's only got 1 bar because it's a ribbing edging, and that's quite difficult to get the 2 bars. And then over and under on the opposite side. So at the moment I've only gone through 1 bar. See that there? And I'm going to pull the needle through. There we go. And tighten. So those were 2 bubbles that I just went under. Now I'm going to go under these 2 lines, which when I put my tapestry needle underneath, you can see them beautifully. See how they're lined up perfectly? And they're like little train tracks. They're parallel. So that's perfect. That's what you want to see. So we're going to go through and pull. And then we're going to go back to the other side. So these 2 are more like bubbles. They look more like knots. So these are a bit trickier. Sometimes what you have to do is you have to twist. You have to twist that tapestry needle just to help the fibres pass over the end of the needle. It's not damaging. It's only damaging if you go, like really, try and ram it through. Then it will split. But by twisting it, rotating it, whatever you want to call it, you're teasing the ends or the fibres over the end of your tapestry needle. So there we go, and back through and back through. Now I believe I have 1 more. No, that was the end of my, oh no, 1 more. And then that's the end of my ribbing. All right, here we go. Perfect. So let's just have a look. This is what it looks like so far. This is what it looks like so far. And then if I was to pull, see how it started to disappear? Now, obviously, you can see that because it's neon orange. Of course, you're going to see it, but Imagine that with this same coloured yarn. It is pretty, oh no, not that one. It is pretty darn invisible. Like, look at that. It's the same colour yarn. It's clearly a seam because you can see there is a difference. However, you cannot see that. You can't see the yarn that was used to stitch it together. And if you're sat there going, yes, you can, I can see it, I would love to have your eyes, because my goodness, I can barely see my own hands in front of me, let alone that. But yeah, that's fantastic if you can. But there, look, how discreet and how beautiful. So we are going to keep going down the end of our 2 jumper pieces. So I'm just twisting ever so slightly. I'm just changing my view. So I'm on my left side. I'm going to transfer to the right side. So what I can do now is I can start picking up these entire stitches. The only reason I didn't do it on the ribbing is because I just think it's a little bit more difficult. Personally, you might not think it's any more difficult than anything else. But what I'm going to do is I'm just identifying where my yarn is. So I'm going to separate them ever so slightly. There we go. So where I fed my yarn through, I've just got the leg of a stitch. I've got the end of the stitch. I would like my needle to go under 2 legs of stitching, like so. Can you see that? So now I've gone under an entire stitch. I've not just gone under half of it. I've gone under an entire stitch because I've now got 2 legs of yarn. I'm now going to do the same just above, because I'm on the whatever side, the left side, and I'm going to go back to the right. So I'm going to take my tapestry needle and I'm going to feed it. See how I'm twisting it? I'm going to feed it through an entire stitch. So I've got 2 bars on my tapestry needle, and then I pull it through, and then I make sure that I'm going across to the stitches that are opposite. So again, I'm going to go under the 2 bars, which you can see there on my tapestry needle, and pulling. And then we're going to keep going from one side to the other, all the way up and along the 2 jumpers edges. And then as you're going, if you just give this a little pull, the yarn will disappear. Again, especially if it's in the same color as what you've knit, it will disappear. And you're going to continue doing that up until the decreases. So up until here. I'll show you just on one. See where that diagonal line starts to form? I've got my lovely raised stitches. We are going to sew the 2 pieces up to this first raised stitch, but we're not going to go through that raised stitch. I was just doing that to show you. You're going to go underneath it. So I'm going to do that now, but I'm going to speed it up slightly, just to help you get to the end, get through this as quick as possible, but not in a rude way, but you know, probably quite eager. But if you're unsure of anything I've done, you can always go back and just replay or rewatch. So I'm going to stitch that now. Right, okie dokie. So there we go. I've stitched all the way up until where the decreases start. So what I'm going to do now is I've got the wrong side in front of me. Now I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to run it through or underneath some of those stitches, some of those bars that I've done previously, as a way to weave in my ends like so. I'm not knotting it. And there's a reason I'm not knotting it. I'm not knotting it because this is not, I'm not making this as a toy. I'm not making this as something to be worn. It's something that's going to hang up somewhere as a form of decoration. So whenever I've got things that I make for decorative purposes, that I know aren't going to be handled often, if at all, I don't often knot my ends in. I'd rather weave them in. That's just a personal choice. You might decide the absolute opposite and you want to weave those ends in, and that's absolutely fine. So what I would do now is click my fingers and whoosh, the other side would also be done. I'm not going to click my fingers and do that because I don't need to, because what I want to do now is I want to show you how to do this seam here. I want to show you how to attach an arm onto said jumper, which is very, very exciting. The one thing I'm going to do is, though, I'm going to weave in this little end, because again, I'm going to be using my neon orange. I might get a bigger piece. No, I'll be fine with that. Here's a little recap as to how to weave in ends if you're not too sure. The sleeves are a little bit different because we've got this teeny tiny, almost you'd probably think unnecessary, but it is necessary, this teeny tiny piece of ribbing here. It's only 2 stitches, but I'm just going to have the wrong side facing me as I normally would. And I'm just going to bring my needle down and through some of these edge stitches. You've really got to twist it. Twisty, twisty, twist. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you will know that I much prefer working with a metal tapestry needle. I detest these plastic ones. Let's be honest, they're cheap, they're cheerful, but they do the job. But the metal ones, you just get a much higher quality finish to any sewing element, because the needle will just whoosh, glide through, whereas this, it just gets stuck in its direction and can't be doing with it. But there we go. So I just literally pulled it underneath some stitches, but made sure it did not go to the other side, so it still can't be seen. So wonderful. And now I'm going to take my neon. I'm just trying to decide, do I need another piece? I don't think I do. I'm just going to go for it. Now, another reason why I haven't sewn the other seam up at this moment in time is because it's just to kind of prove a point as well. You don't have to do this in a particular order. You don't have to sew up both of your arms and then, do this. You can sew them in any order as long as it makes sense to you. I'm obviously not saying add the sleeve to the front and back and then sew the sleeve seam together. Now that's a bit silly, isn't it? This makes life easier. But you don't need to do it in a particular order is what I'm trying to say. Right, any hoozles. First thing I'm going to do it over here. I didn't actually need to cut that end off because I'm going to continue sewing. So I'm going to use those previous stitches, bring my tapestry needle through, there we go, and then I'm going to go and stitch or sew on the same spot 2 or 3 times, and then on the final time I'm going to bring my needle through or wrap my yarn around so that it forms a knot, so it's nice and anchored. Brilliant. And now what I'm going to do, the one thing I didn't tell you, is I have anchored that at the bottom where the 2 pieces actually join up, where the 2 front and back pieces, where I've seamed them, where I've joined them. I've anchored the yarn specifically in that corner, and now I'm going to bring the sleeve over, and I'm going to take my needle. I'm going to find where the seam ends on that sleeve, like so, and I'm going to use that as an anchor point for my sleeve and my 2 front and back pieces. I'm literally sewing, and it's very complicated, there's so much yarn. I'm literally sewing my front and back pieces to my sleeve at the point of the seam. And when I say the point of the seam, remember, a seam is when you have 2 edges that join like so. So if I was to sew these 2 pieces together here, that would form a seam, because it's 2 edges or 2 fabrics, 2 materials being joined together. That's what a seam actually is. So in case you've heard me say seam, 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 and you're sat there going, I don't actually know what a seam is. No, hopefully you do. There we go. So I've now got my sleeve joined to the front and the back piece. Not well, but I'm gonna do the best bit now. Now I'm going to sew along the sleeve and the front and back, but I'm going to be using these raised stitches here. I'm still using a mattress stitch, so I'm going to go underneath the entire raised stitch, just like I have there, the entire raised stitch, bring that needle through. Oh, look at that. The sleeve wants to join in. I'm now going to go to the raised stitch that is just above, and I'm going to bring the needle through, and I'm going to bring it across to the opposite raised stitch on the sleeve, like so, and I'm going to bring it through. There we go. Now what I'm also going to do is I'm going to make sure that my stitches are lined up. So what that means is I don't want to start stitching, like I don't want to join this stitch to that stitch because it's going to be uneven. So I'm trying to line them up as best as possible, but I can see here just by lining up that sleeve, see how the two neck pieces don't join up? I think I've gone too high somewhere, so I'm actually going to take it out. Oh yeah, I have gone too high, I can see it. I'm going to take it out. So I've still got my anchor stitch in. Put that back on. There we go. And this time I'm going to line up the top of the neck. Now I'm not massively stretching it. I'm doing this to help release some of the tension. That's all I'm doing that for. And it also gives you a much better idea of where those stitches line up one next to the other. And I'm going to come back down here, and I'm going to go to sorry, I'm going to go to this raised stitch and up one and over to the opposite and bring through. That's better, because don't forget as well, with our jumpers, the sleeves are going to naturally lift because of the neckline here. So they are going to naturally lift, so they're kind of going to be floppy arms. But that's okay. It's just, oops, you could argue it's part of the design, but it's mostly because of the techniques that have been used. That's the reason why. And then, just like we did before, we're going to do a mattress stitch all the way along, going underneath the entire stitch. So I've got 2 legs, 2 bars underneath the tapestry needle, and I'm going to do that all the way along. All the way along. So what I'll do, I will save you the torture of hearing my voice and my, let's be honest, amazing singing, and I'll speed this up for you. Okie dokie, so I've now got to the point where I'm at my neckline, and you can see the tops line up of my sleeve and my front or back piece. Now I'm going to continue using the mattress stitch, but what I'm going to do, instead of going underneath the entire stitch this time, I'm only going to go underneath one leg. Now, the reason that ow, oh my gosh, I've been looking for this knitting needle for so long, and it's been in my hair this entire time. Well, isn't that frustrating? Because I was gonna use that, because look how bright that is against the pink. Oh, there, never mind. Right, get back to this, Heather. I'm only doing one leg and not the entire stitch, just because it is such a small amount to work with here. It's tiny, look. There's not much there. And I've still got to stitch the other side of that neck onto the other side of the front and back. So if I go under the entire stitch, I've just found that as I've made these and as I've stitched these, I found that it just gets really bulky, and it does get quite difficult to bring your needles through. So that's why I'm only going through the edge of one leg of stitch, just one leg. There we go, all the way through. Now when you get to the top, it can get a little bit tricky because it's hard to get an actual leg. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up and through what would be one of the cast off stitches. So I've gone up and through, and then I'm going to come back down and through on the opposite side. So I'm still going from side to side, but instead of going left, right, right, left, I know I did that wrong. I actually went up and then down, just on that one thing. So I'll show you again. So I'm going up on the final, this is on the final stitches. On the final stitches, I'm going to go up and down. And I'm only doing that for the cast off stitches, because again, push me that way. When it is the same color yarn, it blends in beautifully, and it is quite difficult to see where it has been joined. Okay, so that's the reason why. So, what I would then do is anchor this in by sewing on the same spot 2 or 3 times, or feeding it through along the edge, because I know it's not going to be used as a toy, it's not going to be used as an actual garment, etc. Went through 2 there. And cut off the excess. Da, 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 da. Right, and there you go. Hee hee. That's how you join your pieces together. How awesome is that? And remember, this is bright, oh sorry, I got really loud. Remember, this is bright neon orange, so of course you're going to see the stitches, but when you are doing it in the same colour yarn, they are virtually impossible. Now the final thing I want to leave you with, these techniques that we've used to make these mini jumpers. Now the pattern itself is not a pattern you would use to make a jumper. I'm gonna make that really like Captain clear or Captain obvious now. The techniques, however, are the same. So with a standard jumper, you will do ribbing at the waistline and at the cuffs and even the neckline. But the most important thing is, with a garment, you will also use those decreased stitches, or you can use those decreased stitches. So there are other decreased methods that might be more decorative, but the ones that we've used, the slip, slip, knit, and the knit 2 together, are the bog standard. Okay, but these are all techniques that you would actually use to make a garment, to make a jumper or a cardigan. It's just the process is a little bit different. So there you go. That is how you can assemble your own little jumpers. Oh, I thoroughly enjoyed that. That was awesome. I really hope you did. I really hope you found that useful. I'll be really honest, I am kind of regretting this yarn choice now. I think it was maybe a bit too dull. So next time I'll stick to my nice bright colours. But anyway, just wanted to be a bit honest there. If you have any feedback on the videos, please do get in touch with me. I'm still learning. I'm still getting, my head around these things. I've only been doing, Arthur's Knitting Business was created in March of 2024. We're now at the end of August, but I've only just started with the tutorials. So if you've got any feedback, anything to say at all, please do let me know, because, at the end of the day, Arthur's Knitting Business is all about making knitting accessible and affordable for those who want to learn the skill. And I can't do that without feedback. So if you've got any tips or tricks, please do let me know. But anyway, really hope you enjoyed that. And as always, happy knitting.